A slicer is, as its name suggests, an app that slices up a virtual object so a 3D printer can print it layer by layer. This is a 3MF format file of a case mold for a handle. It was created by CAD design software Fusion 360. The 3MF format has many advantages over traditional STL files. I'll open this one in Simplify 3D. It is a paid special purpose slicer. Like others that come free with 3D printer hardware, it can rotate, zoom and pan using the mouse, and it can dissect, combine and resize objects. Here is an example of how it can duplicate and reflect an object. If you use this slicer, you likely won't need any further instruction. Let's use PrusaSlicer to open the 3D model of a melt fluidity tester that I have downloaded. There are some details to be careful about. First, I'll make sure support is turned on, and the overhang threshold is set to 35 degrees. Printers these days can handle extreme overhangs. Now let's go to Preview. Support is being generated in front, even though this was drawn with a 37-degree angle to avoid it. Second, there is a problem at the back. It is not sitting flat on the bed. In Editor mode, I'll use the Place on Face tool to fix that. Now, let's go back to Preview to reslice it. That has fixed both issues. Back in Edit mode, I'll press Escape to turn off the Placer tool. Third, let's go to Preview mode and move this slider. Notice that infill is being generated, but it is not needed. Let's turn it off in the print settings by changing the fill density to 0. After reslicing, it is hollow and ready to print too. After making sure I have the right printer configuration selected, I'll choose Export from the File menu. Using the Export G-code option, I'll give the file a name and save. There are many ways to send this to the printer. The most basic is to copy the file to a memory stick and insert that into the printer. Later, you can learn to use your slicer's ability to connect to your printer directly over Wi-Fi. Now let's open a file that contains multiple objects. Notice it asks me how I want to open it. I'll tell it I want the 3D models. Then it asks if I want to load all the objects as one. I'll answer no. I obviously cannot print all of these at once. To unselect all in this slicer, I shift-click outside of them. Now I can proceed as before, positioning each object on the bed, orienting it and configuring the infill and support. This object is hollow and open, with no extreme overhangs. So the slicer realizes that it does not need to print support. However, there are a couple of new issues with the other two. For example, look under this object. Notice it does need support. I'll move it to the print bed and go to Preview mode to ensure the slicer does realize this need. This object has a special need, a brim. That is because its area of contact with the print bed is inadequate. It could release during printing. I'll set a brim at 3 mm wide outside and enter a 0 separation gap to make sure it holds on well. The preview ensures that it is working. Other popular printer brands have their own slicers. This is Creality print. Its Prepare panel corresponds to the Prusa Editor panel. It also has a Lay on Face tool. Rotating and panning have different mouse key combinations than PrusaSlicer. The controls we already talked about are here on the right. Support Panel 4 has the checkbox to enable and disable support. Strength Panel 2 is where you find infill settings. Other Settings Panel 5 under Bed Adhesion is where you choose the brim type. This slicer enables these settings to be global or just for the selected object. For example, I can print these two at the same time, turning on a brim for this one, but not this one. While this slicer can export to a G-code file, its device panel can be used to connect a printer, initiate a print, and monitor it with data and camera. Most other systems have similar functionality. Our wish is that this video has removed a few barriers that might have been preventing you from investigating the use of 3D design and printing in your ceramic practice. Don't miss out on the potential by being overwhelmed. Just take it a step at a time, solving each obstacle in your path as it arises.